Welcome to Transformed by Grief. My name is Ellie Thomas, and I am here to guide you on your transformational grief journey. From feeling lost, raw, and brokenhearted, questioning everything in you and around you, to reconnecting to the truth of who you are and the beauty, fulfillment, and vibrancy of life that is still available in you and through you. On this podcast, we explore the depths of what it means to say yes to life again after you've been broken open by pain and grief. We will explore what it means to create a deep, loving, and reverent relationship to yourself, to grief, and to life in a way that allows you to begin to rebuild from the inside out and to create a powerful foundation for a joy-filled, alive feeling and fulfilling life you love. Welcome back to Transformed by Grief. I'm so glad to bring you today's episode because we're getting into a really important and not talked about that often conversation subject, all about needs. Our human needs are the basis of our vulnerability, our neediness, our humanness that can very much come alive in any grief journey, in any broken open moment. We've been talking a lot about this in the sanctuary in the past couple months because beginning to have a deep relationship awareness, connection, honoring of our needs, even when we can't perfectly fulfill them, or even when we need things that go beyond the power of our humanness, is the basis of any transformational journey. Beginning to really understand ourselves, the parts of ourselves that have been molded by our past and left scars and holes that need tending to, and that help create our wholeness actually when we connect with those kind of gaps in where we have been tended to, where we are still in need of love, where we are still in need of connection, where we are still in need of nurturing and support. And it goes on and on. But this is truly the basis of all transformational work, whether it be specific transformational grief work. In my experience, grief arises in every single transformational journey. Most people just don't realize that grief is there when they embark on it. Grief has so many different textures and flavors and ways of arising in our system. And as a society, we have come to understand grief in a very tangible way. I lost something, therefore I have grief. But it's so much bigger than that. And so this place of connecting to ourselves on this human level, it requires coming back to the body. It requires coming back to deep relationship with our humanness, our imperfection, the parts of us that we have probably tried to hide and override for years and years and years if we are operating in the world that we're operating in, especially if you are a woman. And this place of beginning to connect with my needs, I remember beginning my work with my coach it was a long time ago, maybe 6 years ago now, 5 or 6 years ago, beginning to open up to the work of grief required that I come into deeper relationship with, and not even the work of grief, beginning to open up to my own relationship with grief and beginning to allow and create the foundation for which I could move with my grief and release years of harbored grief, and where I could begin to allow the built up inner pressure of suppressed emotion to escape so that I could feel myself again. All of this started with beginning to acknowledge my needs and beginning to own them with love and beginning to advocate for myself in these ways and beginning to have a conversation with myself about where I had been pretending to not have needs or just simply subconsciously overlooking because I didn't feel safe to acknowledge them, or like they could be acknowledged, like it was okay for me to be in my imperfect humanness. So there is so much here. I feel like I could do an entire masterclass on this, and maybe we will. If you want that, let me know, because this is like the before you even lay the concrete or the bricks of the foundation of a house you're building. Like this is the I'm thinking of the word in Spanish, vigas. This is like the really strong iron or steel rods that go into the ground that hold your structure together and that ground your structure to the earth. And needs are exactly that. Or let me say that better, our relationship to our needs and having and developing a relationship to our needs and beginning to understand the many different aspects and where they come from and how they relate to what we're feeling and what we're processing. That is like these, huge pillars of support and huge pillars of grounding that ground us into the experience of transformation and bring us back to our humanness, so that through that we can open to divinity, so that we can open to wholeness, so that we can open to these greater parts of ourselves. It's interesting. A lot of times when we're working with this and we're working with these kind of cracks in ourselves, or these, I've been using a little bit the analogy of Swiss cheese in the sanctuary, like the holes in our Swiss cheese. Those are actually the holes through which, as we tend to them and allow energy to flow through them again, a lot of the times we've been trying to patch them up and to keep them on the down low and to like pretend that they're not there. But actually, when we come into relationship to them, that's where so many of our gifts and so much of our like divine essence, your soul, begins to flow through. And that is where we end up connecting to ourselves. So this is like really humble, nitty-gritty feeling work at the beginning of being in our humanness and acknowledging, the things that we didn't get that we really needed when we were younger, the things that we still are needing now, coming into relationship to that now, grounding ourselves in the imperfection of humanness. And through that journey, we rediscover and come into so much more of ourselves and have the invitation to allow this greater energy to express through us. So today I am sharing for the rest of the show this kind of opening talk around needs that I gave in the sanctuary. It's about half an hour long, and there's also a practice at the end that leads you into relationship, kind of connective relationship with what's there. It talks about how we can meet our needs and how sometimes we can't, and what to do there, and how to be in the gap of that when we feel grief and emotion there. And I guide you through that the whole time. This is a very kind of open-hearted, grounded conversation. And so it doesn't move really quickly, but that's part of the invitation to allow yourself to just let the words and the concepts and the ideas and the exploration sink in. And then at the end, I'll lead you through a practice of just acknowledging and coming into connection with the needs that are present in your life and what that might be bringing up now. So as always, if you would love to explore this more and work with me and a beautiful community around this more and develop all these different layers of your transformation, the sanctuary is always open. Join us. We meet generally on Wednesdays. The timing varies a little bit because we've got people in all different time zones, but there are such special calls. Every call has just been so incredibly life-giving, and we're really moving into a season of uncovering more. I can feel that happening in the people that are present, and I'm excited to see what that looks like and feels like. So if you are ready to join us, if you're ready to be met in your Born Through Grief journey, you know where to find me for one-on-one work and for the sanctuary. And without further ado, here's a further exploration around needs. Oh, and one last thing. When this episode ends, it ends in an extended moment of silence, letting you process and connect with whatever's coming up through the practice that I lead you through. through the reflection that I lead you through. This is the time in the sanctuary where we start to move into mentorship. And so just note that this will end with an extended time of silence, and then the music will kick in when the episode is over. Okay, now here you go. So let's just do some internal sacred tending. You can follow along and just kind of be with yourself in it. Taking a moment in your chair, eyes open or closed, to feel your butt and feel yourself arriving to the end of your day. Taking a few conscious breaths in and really allowing them to begin to slowly bring you into your body, maybe even bringing your attention to any energy moving in your head space. And just with each breath, kind of breathing that down your face, into your heart, and then slowly into your belly on the exhales. Take a couple of those on your own. Just taking a tender, precious moment with yourself here of acknowledgement of whatever you're feeling. If it feels good to place a hand on any part of your body, you can do that. And I'm just closing my eyes to tune into things, but you can for sure have them open and just let a sense of connection with yourself be made. Like, I'm coming back to beautiful connection with myself after a long day. Welcoming in awareness. Awareness of what you're feeling. Awareness of what you're needing. Awareness of your energy level. Of any exhaustion. And of anything else. Just as you sink back into yourself with your breath, as you kind of feel yourself, maybe even lean back in your chair a tiny bit, what do you become aware of? What's asking for awareness? And then inviting in a sense of acknowledgement. And just acknowledging each of those things that came up, acknowledging, yeah, I see you and I hear you to every part of yourself, just kind of acknowledgement to your body. Acknowledgement to your emotional self of like, yeah, that's real. Acknowledgement of your energy level. Yeah. Acknowledgement of your needs and desires right now that may or may not feel met or that they are going to be met. And when we're beyond the kind of self check-in state, I'll talk about two things that are coming up right now to talk about that you can revisit or respond to later on. But just being with needs and desires is so important. And yet being in the acknowledgement of them is even more important without the attachment of needing them to be met, because we may not be able to meet them or they may not be able to be met externally right now. And as you continue to breathe here, just inviting in a invitation of acceptance. Not needing to force acceptance, not even needing to try to accept anything, just inviting acceptance in and seeing how it might appear today. Like, okay, I'm willing to play with you, acceptance. I'm willing to consider you. Just as I breathe, what happens as we make space for acceptance? As we make space for acceptance of who you are right now, of where you are right now, of your needs and desires, of your emotions, of your energy levels, and more. Not even trying to accept them, like I already said, just like welcoming the potential of acceptance in and seeing what happens as we take a breath or two. So before we move on, just taking a breath or two. Noticing where you're landing. Internally. So I was having a conversation with a friend today who lost a parent recently, and we were talking about the journey of having a deeply connected experience with grief and feeling the call often that is not from our anything physical, is not from our mind. It's like some call from our soul to have an intimacy with grief, basically an inner requirement to have intimacy with grief in a way that the world often doesn't or doesn't understand, and how strange that can be to process it with people that are living it in a different way or aren't grieving the same things. And one thing that really arose as I was just kind of listening to where she was at was again this very, very important part around the kind of prerequisite that we have to walk through or to move through in order to step into relationship with grief in a more fluid way, which is growing in our relationship to ourselves. And the there's kind of a prerequisite to being able to connect with grief on these deeper levels. And that is through, in my experience, being able to connect with ourselves in that way, which is ultimately like the overarching theme of all of our work and all of my work is and anybody that's ever worked with me, is cultivating deep, deep relationship with self. And as we do that, we are meeting all of these parts of ourselves and all of these emotions and all of these experiences with deep connection as well from the basis of that relationship. So if you're here, you've already been working on that in your life because you're here. Nobody that's not open to that, nobody that, yeah, nobody would work with me if they're not open to that. And a huge piece of that, which is often really confusing, is connecting with our needs and connecting with our desires from a clear place as a deep relationship with ourselves. And it's mainly confusing from the place of needs, especially for women in our society, where needs have not often been considered important, or we have not been given the space to voice them. And beginning to come into relationship with our needs is kind of a huge foundational piece of our ongoing grief journey. However, a lot of the times this can be taught or looked at or addressed from a place of, well, if I look into my needs, then I must figure out how they are going to be met. And it can come from a place of control. And while I totally get that, because usually that is just trying to patch pain and prevent us from pain, it is just a really, really important safety mechanism. The truth of needs often brings us to the truth of the pain of them not having been met by us, by others, by God, or however you relate to the beyond. And it's a very courageous act, in my experience, to begin to claim our needs in past versions of ourselves and in present versions of ourselves from a place of, I really needed, or I really need this. If it wasn't met in the past, grieving that need not having been met. There's often anger here. There's often a whole slew of an experience here. And then in the present, also, I'm claiming this need, just stating, I really need this. And I don't know if it's going to be met. And when we talk about that, there's a gap of grief and fear and relationship with the unknown that's created when we have the bravery to state that and step into, basically by stating it and not knowing how it's going to be met, we are stepping into a new relationship with the unknown. We're allowing ourselves to be fully seen, stated, claimed, and for the unknown to meet us in that or not meet us in that. The unknown, in my experience, in my sense of it, always meets us, but it may not be an active sense of meeting our needs. And so when I bring up the awareness of our needs today, oftentimes when I explore this with one-on-one clients, we go into this a lot, and it can be really scary just to claim, like, I need rest. I need this. I need that. I need money, maybe. I need, there's a million things we could need. But ultimately, I think it usually comes down to like space, connection, obviously having our basic needs met, and claiming that or stating that. And then once we do that, we are invited into three potentials. One is that this need is potentially meetable by ourselves, and we can offer that witnessing and that healing and support to ourselves by stating, oh, I really need sleep. Okay, I am going to go to sleep. I'm just using an example. Or, oh, I'm really needing to eat. Even though nobody else is hungry, I need to go find myself some good food or make myself something. Or I really need to go to the bathroom. And even though this isn't a potentially appropriate time to go to the bathroom in the sense of society, like I need to honor my body's need to go to the bathroom right now. So we're invited into the potential of turning towards that need and seeing, can I meet this right now? And exploring that if we can. We may not always be able to. Oftentimes we can't. We're also invited into a place where we have a need and somebody else could potentially support us in that. And this is usually a really vulnerable place to share our needs with other people and to say, I'm really needing support, or I'm really needing to know that you'll be there, or I'm really needing a hug, or I'm really needing to not make dinner tonight. Can you please? Or, there's a million different iterations of this. I'm really needing to go on an adventure. Will you join me? And so we're also invited into, like, the first level is ourselves, stating our needs, letting them kind of just exist in the abyss, and letting ourselves sit with what is often the discomfort of really stating and claiming our needs in a place where we have indirectly or directly likely been told that we should be needless. And then we get to kind of explore that need and our potential ability to support ourselves in it. And in many ways, this might be healing. And at the same time, we might not be able to. And then we get invited into the next layer, which is other people. And is this a need that I feel like I can express? And if I do express it, are others able to meet me in it? And I may express it and they may not be able to meet me in it. Every time we step out from the self a little bit further, we're surrendering a little bit more control. We're surrendering to the potential of the unknown. We're surrendering to the potential that we may not be met. And yet it is worth it simply when it's in our capacity to do so, simply to explore, because oftentimes needs simply need awareness and recognition. Yes, of course they need to be met. There are very basic needs that need to be met. We need a house, we need food, we need water, we need sleep, we need income to be able to support these parts of our lives, etc. And beyond that, many times on an emotional level, on a spiritual level, those needs can be there, but what they most need is witnessing. And so as we witness ourselves, as we potentially explore being witnessed by others in our need, which can be extremely vulnerable, especially when we don't know if they're capable of meeting us in it or meeting it, we also have the awareness that it may not be meetable by a human, or we may not be able to control it. And so is God, the divine, the universe, able to meet us in it? And oftentimes when we're not able to meet ourselves and we don't feel either in a space to bring it to others or just others can't meet us in it, my prayer is just to lift up my need. Like, I don't know how this can be met, but I got to lift it up to you because I don't have any way of meeting it myself. There's a very deep place of vulnerability of simply acknowledging layer after layer as we go deeper into our journeys with grief and not with grief. I came into this from a grief angle, but it is a prerequisite to really being able to do this in grief anyways, to be in a place where we can say and claim what our needs are without the expectation that they will always be met, it's a very, very, very vulnerable thing. For me, when I was exploring this, the first time I kind of stepped into my need exploration was about 7 years ago, and I was terrified to even consider that I had needs. Like terrified. And to even consider that I had all of these needs from the past that had never been met and that I had just skimmed over the top of, or that I had needed to find a way through because they hadn't been met. And I usually just found it by squashing them down and trying to be somebody that didn't need anything from anybody else. And oftentimes, grief or broken open moments or whatever it is that brings you into deeper relationship with yourself requires us to go through a gentle or not gentle version of reclamation, reclaiming each of these things, reclaiming the foundation of our humanness, which is neediness. So just take a second now. It looks like Allison already did this, but if you're watching the replay, just take a second now and let's come back to that question of awareness and awareness of what needs might be present right now. And then let's just step into acknowledgement. Like, that is a real need. I see that. This is valid. This is real. This is legit. And I'm so sorry if this hasn't been met in the past. I'm so sorry that it has not been met. And standing here now in relationship to that need, we can ask, is this a need I am able to meet? And if it's a no, that's okay. Is this a need other people are able to meet? And as you sit with it, it might be a no too. And if it's a no too, that's okay. And any needs that are unmeetable in our humanness, just lifting them up to the unknown, lifting them up to the mystery, to God. I know every person in here has their own relationship with the divine and or is in their exploration of their relationship to the divine. And so sometimes just saying like, I don't know, I'm just lifting this up to whatever's there because I don't know how to meet this. But then just taking the moment to sit with, what is it like to really sit with this need, to recognize it, to affirm it, and then to be open to the potentials that it's not meetable, but to be aware of that. And just in that act, in my experience, we begin to disconnect a little bit more or decouple. That's a better word. Decouple, uncouple from the solving brain, because a lot of the times when needs arise and when needs come up, we are spurred into our, and no, I'm number one here, intellect. My intellect goes crazy trying to solve it and figure it out. And so when we go through this process of, can I meet this personally? Are others going to be able to meet it? Is there actually somebody that would help me with this? And then if there's a no to all of these things, can I just lift this up? And as we go through the act of that and kind of the surrender of it while still being in relationship to the need, in my experience, we begin to create space to experience the need on a deeper level in a different way, potentially on an emotional level, potentially from a place of spiritual inner wisdom, because our mind has no longer hijacked it as its project that it is trying to solve. And so, what is it like for you to simply sit with that, to sit with that process right now? I'll walk you through it again. What needs are present right now? What needs are asking to be seen and known and acknowledged? And just really feeling that need and feeling where it might be located in your body, how it's speaking to you, what it feels like. Then give space for anything that might be swelling up with it. Are there images from the past or memories from the past or emotions from the past? Or sometimes, even in my experience, as I simply recognized my needs, I ended up realizing how long they had been there without being acknowledged. And I just felt so much immense inner grief and sadness that it had been there the whole time. So just giving space to what the experience of actually seeing and being in relationship with your needs is. And letting any emotion be there, and then parallel to that, just letting the emotion stay. We'll come back to it in a moment. And checking in with, is this a need that I can meet right now? Is there any way I can turn towards this part of myself and step in? If there is, explore that, lean into that. How can you do that? And if not, just take a moment to sit with the reality of the no. What does it feel like to not be able to meet your own needs? It might feel helpless or hopeless. Maybe there's peace here. Maybe it's okay. There's a whole range of things that might exist here. And then taking a breath and asking, is this a need that anybody else can meet? Is there anyone in my life that is able to potentially meet this need if I were to voice it to them and to share it with them from a really open place? And see if somebody comes up. And if there is somebody, take a moment to explore. Oh, what would it be like to step out and vulnerably state this need to them? From a place of love for myself and love for them, what would it be like to advocate for myself in this way? And if the answer is no, there's nobody that can meet this need, let's sit with that. That can be big. Sometimes these needs are like, I need this to happen, or I need this to change now because I don't feel like I have the capacity to keep going like this. or whatever it is. And sometimes as we just state the need, we realize it's unmeetable by other humans. There's nothing anybody can tangibly do in this moment to satisfy this and to not even satisfy, fulfill this need. There can be just a cavern of emotion in this. And there could be peace too. Could feel devastating and really scary to just hold this in yourself, in your heart. Something that nor you nor any other human can change in this moment or fulfill or meet in this moment. And also there can be this deep connection to the greater part of us in this space. To the vast non-humanness, while we are very clearly in a human moment. And then taking a breath and lifting any unmet needs, unmet pieces up to the divine, up to the heavens, out to the universe, up to God, however, and out to God, however you want to do this. Just surrendering it to the unknown. I'm just going to give a moment of silence for you to experience this and to see what comes as you do this. Thank you for listening to Transformed by Grief. Please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and to share it with a loved one that needs this medicine today. If you are ready to deepen into your own Transformed by Grief process, you can join the Sanctuary membership or work with me one-on-one at ellieflow.com. See you soon.